Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. It's the fourth Wednesday of the month, and that means it's time for our Birds Notes program. Joining us as always is bird expert and conservation biologist for Audubon, Vermont, Mark LaBarr. Thank you so much for coming in, Mark.
Always great to be here.
So, what do you have for us today?
Well, I thought we would talk about the work that Audubon, Vermont does with a number of endangered and recovered species here in the state.
Fabulous.
And we haven't done that before, so
No.
I figured I'd introduce you to some of these birds.
Okay, so let's get started.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Well,
with your
this is a project that we've done for many years. And we work closely with the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department as far as funding and accomplishing the tasks for both species like the common tern, which I'll talk about in a little bit, which are state endangered, and then some of the other species that have recovered, like the Peregrine Falcon, but still require monitoring to make sure their populations remain stable in the state.
And the state designates what's endangered and what's not, the feds and the state.
Yeah, so that's the Vermont Endangered and Threatened Species Committee, that the Endangered Species Committee will propose that and makes that decision, and then that's decided on what's endangered, and we've had a number of success stories. So what goes off the list as well. Yeah.
Okay, so what species do you want to start with today?
Well, you know, the common tern. Now, this is a bird that is a favorite of mine because I've been doing work with the common tern on the lake for 30 some odd years now. Audubon has worked with these birds. Great bird, smaller than a seagull. They nest on Lake Champlain, nice little sharp bill, red with a black tip and that black cap, so they're a gorgeous bird. They're kind of like flying tweezers, so they pick fish right off the surface. They don't dive, and so they're a fish eater. And they spend most of their time on the northern part of the lake, what we call the inland sea.
I just saw one though in Charlotte. It was very exciting because I knew it was it was a very different bird.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's a tern.
And what it probably was, what you may have seen though, was a Caspian tern.
Okay.
And that's a bigger tern, looks kind of like it, but more the size of a gull. And they nest on the Four Brothers Islands in New York.
Oh, okay.
So down around where you are, although you could have very much seen common terns too, because they're starting to disperse now that the breeding season is over.
So where does the common tern nest?
So they nest up in what's called the inland sea, you know, east of the islands, North Hero and Grand Isle, and the island that they use this year is a small island called Papasquash Island.
Love the name.
Yeah, it's a great, and I've been visiting this island for years now. And on this little island, which is maybe has the footprint of a house, you know, it's not very big, we'll have upwards of a couple hundred pairs of common tern nestings. And this year we had some of our highest gull counts, so we had 400 pairs of gulls nesting.
Wow.
This
so
is
it's right on the ground.
Yeah, so all these birds nest right on the ground. There's no trees. This is a common tern nest. You can see the eggs are cryptically colored. Sometimes they make a little more of a nest. Sometimes this is all you see. You know, again, when you're up there, you have to be very careful as you walk around, because, you know, that's the idea, is they want to not have predators come down and eat their eggs.
So how long does it take to hatch? How long is that
chicks,
risky time?
Yeah, so it takes about 3 weeks, maybe a little bit more than 3 weeks for incubation. The eggs are laid asynchronously, so that the first chick hatches, then the second chick, and then the third chick. And this is what they look like when they hatch. Yeah, they're cute little guys and gals, and they look very much, again, like the eggs.
Right.
Because now they've got 3 weeks. Here's one that's a little bit bigger. Still has that flecking and that coloration on it, but as they get older, you know, they still maintain that because they're stuck on the ground. They can move around.
Right.
And then once they get to the point that they can fly, they begin to look like this. And this is on the north spit of Papasquash Island. And you can see these are youngsters where the adults have that full black cap. These guys have white on the front, and they have that black carpal bar or wing bar that tells them. And if you look really close, this bird actually has a band on it that I put on it.
Right. So what are you doing on the island? It looked like you might have been banding when you're holding a
So
bird.
we go up on the island about once a week, and what we do is we mark all of the nests so that we can track the success, the nesting, hatching success. And then we land and we'll band the young birds, the chicks, and then we spend time looking for those chicks. And that way we can see how many chicks actually make it to the point of fledging, of being able to fly.
Wow.
And so those bands give us that, they have a unique number on them, so we know who's still alive and who isn't. And sometimes, we had 6 birds that were adults that we saw. We couldn't read the bands, but they had bands on them. So they're potentially young birds that came back.
Hopefully, right?
Yeah, and came back to the population to breed, which is what we want to do.
So you brought us a soundtrack of what is it like there? I mean, one, you wear a hard hat, right?
Right. So during the breeding season, we have to wear a hard hat because the terns are very aggressive in defending their nests, and they will dive bomb you, and they'll take their bills, and they literally ping off the top of your hard hat as you're out there. Here you can see a common tern coming in for
a ping.
A ping, yes.
On you.
On me, and it's also very noisy up there. I think we have a little bit of a sound clip.
Let's listen.
And so when you're up there, it can be very stressful because you're trying to collect this data, you're trying to do a track, and these birds are just,
noisy,
dive bombing you. They give you nice little presents in the form of guano that come down on you while you're up there. So it's a busy time, and oftentimes you get off the island and you motor away in the boat, and you're kind of like, But
they don't know you yet.
They do know me.
37 years.
Ironically, they do know me. So I have. We have volunteers that come up and help us out. We do a lot of things to help the terns, and we put up shelters in order for the chicks to go, and we also. We'll go up, like I said, and monitor the chicks.
Right.
So when we're up there, this is what the shelters look like. So those little guys, when they're moving around, they have a place to get out of the rain and tuck themselves underneath.
How nice for them.
Yes, and then this allows them to avoid predation in many respects in bad weather. Again, sometimes we recruit volunteers to come and help us get up there. I like the really tall ones, because then the terns hit them as opposed to me. This is actually my son Owen with me.
He's taller.
Yeah, he's quite a bit taller than me. I don't know how that happened. And we search again, sometimes on our hands and knees for these chicks because they tuck down into the vegetation.
Right.
We also put buoys up to keep people off the island because, as you saw, somebody walking around up there could step on eggs or step on chicks, so we want to protect them from disturbance. And, we've done pretty good. This year we had just about 200 pairs, and I was up on the lake not too long ago. We got just under 100 chicks that fledged this year.
Wow.
So a really good year for common terns.
You're doing your job well.
We were happy with how things turned out this year.
Okay, so what about other species that you work with?
So we've worked with a number of other different endangered species. This particular species, the Peregrine Falcon, okay, this is a bird that was removed from Vermont due to DDT, eggshell thinning, and now has come back with a storm. This bird now has 50 plus pairs around the state. It was downlisted, then completely delisted from the endangered species here in the state of Vermont because of its recovery. This is what a young peregrine falcon. They nest on cliff sites, so big cliff faces.
And you're still monitoring them?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we work with a number of volunteers throughout the state that actually go out and they'll keep an eye. My coworker Margaret Fowle is in charge of that project, and these volunteers monitor those cliff sites just to see whether the pairs are back and hopefully see how many chicks. They have to do it using a spotting scope. It's not like the terns where we go up on the island. So if they have to see all that, and the peregrines had another great year.
Good.
I think 50 plus pairs around the state with high reproductive success. So are about the same as we've had in past years. So again, a species that really shows how the endangered species work, you know, and ACT can really work to protect these species and bring these birds back.
And so another one that's certainly been on the list is the bald eagle.
Yeah,
how are they doing?
They're doing great as well. So the bald eagle is a species that, again, nests here in Vermont. It used to not nest here, but they've shown an amazing amount of recovery where they've come back. And these birds are now nesting. Their numbers are close to being downlisted, and potentially, in the meantime, this is a picture from up at the Moore Reservoir on the Connecticut River, the Moore Dam.
Great picture.
And yeah, this is an adult coming in with a chick. So our numbers are at the point now, which is in the 20s, you know, maybe a little bit more than that. We're still getting the numbers in, where we may actually delist them from the Vermont Endangered Species List as well. So
where do you want to get to?
The recovery goal is, I believe, 29 pairs, and that's for, since they have wide ranges, that includes some pairs that might nest on other parts of, say, in New Hampshire, for instance, they nest on the Connecticut River, and they spend time in Vermont. And then for Vermont itself, I think the recovery goal is 19 pairs that actually nest in the state of Vermont.
Okay, so 15 seconds. Chimneyswift.
So Chimneyswift is another bird. It's a priority species, not endangered, but we decided we would take a look. Their numbers are declining. They use human structures, chimneys. They nest right down in there, and they roost down in these chimneys. So we've been actually, again, working with citizen, community scientists, volunteers. We've been working to monitor their roost sites and potentially start building some of these Chimneyswift towers.
Cool.
That kind of works like a chimney, but can, you know, be protected and gives them more room.
So if you have any questions, bird-related questions for Mark LaBarr, you can check out his address on your screen, or you can drop Mark an email. His address is mlabarr@audubon.org. So send Mark your pictures, your questions, and we'll have them coming up on another Bird Notes. Mark, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
We love your stories and your fabulous work. And thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard.